you started your career in 2015 as an account assistant in a hotel,
Yeah.
worked there for almost a year, and then you were like, no, this is not for me. What happened there?
Like, how things change and how, like, one decision can actually sort of decide your whole life journey as well.
Would love to understand why social entrepreneurship.
And I think that is a point where that I need to decide, okay, do I want to do this full time, or do I still want to continue my journey in my, I guess, building my career. I quit my job and I pursue my journey as a social entrepreneur.
Okay, Sweelin, thank you so much for joining this podcast, and I'm really happy to have you on this show. You are one of the most aspiring entrepreneurs in Malaysia, and of course, you have had two really great companies under your belt. You have been Forbes 30 under 30. You are an entrepreneur. You have been consulting under your own brand name, and of course, before all of this unraveled, you started your career in 2015 as an account assistant in a hotel and
Yeah.
worked there for almost a year, and then you were like, no, this is not for me. What happened there?
Right. Yeah. So first of all, like, thank you for having me here. Yeah, I mean, I was quite comfortable in my previous job. I mean, my sorry, not my previous job, but my first job actually. Yeah, I was quite comfortable. I wouldn't say that I hate it. In fact, I kind of like it and things like that. But I think I saw like the opportunity that I can have. And I feel like I have, like, I mean, nothing to lose at that time, at that point. So hence, I quit my job and I pursue my journey as a social entrepreneur. Yeah.
Amazing. And then you started off with Magic Accelerator program, which
Yeah.
is one of the most aspirational programs here in
Yeah.
Malaysia. And you were there for 5 months. Would love to understand why social entrepreneurship.
Right. Yeah, I think that's a really good question. So I think earlier also you mentioned, right, like what happened there as well. So I remember that in the process of me working, so imagine when I was still working, I was also like running sort of the business part-time at that time. So I think what's interestingly happened is that sometimes when we have like business meeting and things like that, my partners will come and pick me up from the hotel, and then we would just run into the car and go to the meeting, and then they would drop me back during lunch break. So I think at that time as well, like I was actually exposed to social entrepreneurship because previously we were actually doing a lot of volunteering work back in university. So we know how unsustainable it is it that every year we have to raise fund, and then the fund will run out in like 3 to 6 months, right? So we know that intuitively we know that, okay, it's not sustainable. And then coincidentally also we were exposed to this idea of social entrepreneurship by Magic, actually. So they had this like a conference event that three of us we went, and we were like, oh, okay, now you can actually do two things at one time. You can run the business, but at the same time you can make an impact. So I think this
Yeah.
idea stuck with us for quite some time, and we know that, okay, the next thing that we want to do, if we were to do something, is we want to incorporate these two ideas. So then I think a few months after that, we saw like Magic. We had this idea. We started to run sort of PichaEats. At that time we call it the Picha project back in university, where we get our friends in universities as our first buyer, our first customers, right? So we would do things like Giving Tuesday, Giving Thursday, and things like that, so that people would actually buy. And I think at the same time, we actually also saw this social entrepreneurship by Magic. So I think this
Mm.
is so we just try, we just like, okay, we are quite new, we don't really have knowledge in business and not so much in being a social entrepreneur. So we try our luck and apply, and then we got it. And I think that is the point where that I need to decide, okay, do I want to go into this full time, or do I still want to continue my journey in my, I guess, building my career, right, in a hotel and a corporate. So I think that's the long story. I feel like not many people actually ask me this question, where now I think quite interestingly, when I reflect back, it's quite funny, I guess, like, how things change and how, like, one decision can actually sort of decide your whole life journey as well.
Absolutely. And I think especially when you are in university, you don't have really clarity on what you want to do,
Yeah.
right? You are like, okay, whatever job I find, I will start with that job, and I'll see how it goes from there. But it requires a very clear mind to make that decision that, okay, I'm not going to pursue my career in corporate, and I will build something which is mainly social entrepreneurship. And when people talk about social entrepreneurship, then of course people think about that it's a social, it's a cause that people want to work for. Then there is not that much money, might not be involved. But how did you make sure that your aspirations, of course, as a human being, that okay, you want to grow, you want to build your career, I'm not too sure if you want to become a millionaire or a billionaire, how does that tie with you going for social entrepreneurship?
It's a very good question. I think for me personally is that like I think I grew up quite modestly. Like I think we have enough and things like that. So I think growing up, like the idea of being a millionaire is not, I mean I wouldn't say it's not there, but it's not really there because we had enough, right? So I think as I grow up, I mean when I was younger, I feel like it's not really something that I think about very heavily. Like we
Mm,
know that money is important. We know that, like even being in the charity space, we know that money is really important for people to survive, to put food on the table and things like that. So I think for us, I think now how I balance is that I think I read a lot about, I feel like we were never satisfied with what we have. So let's say one day I'm a millionaire, reach my first million, and then I would want the second million, the third million, the 4 million. So I feel like I understand that human behavior of like wanting more and more. Even now, not just, I mean, we if we don't we pull out the money aspect out from it, the other aspect, right? Like whether is it, for example, let's say fame, or whether is it, how many followers you have and things like that, you always want more anyway. So I feel like it's to be able
absolutely.
to find that peace in between, like what are you happy with, what are you contented with, and whether you can live with that as well. So to me, that is my biggest, because I think initially is where we actually follow the other social entrepreneurs. So we listen to their journey, we listen to their stories, we find it very inspiring as well. We also learn a lot from them, like for example, like PG, like the longest social enterprise in Malaysia. So we listen to their stories, how they run things in the organization, and then we started to learn from that, or maybe copy certain things that they do. And until today, like I would say that, yeah, I think it's really finding the balance. And to, I would say for me personally, I think I read like to really understand different perspective, and to understand, what do I want, and ask myself this question: do I, if I want to pursue the path of being a millionaire, then I would go through another path. But then I also ask myself, do will I be happy with it? Do I really want to do it? Can I actually stay in, like, for example, corporate and things like that, right? So I ask myself this question, and if the answer is no, then I'll be like, okay, then then I will just go back to what I'm happy doing.
Absolutely. And honestly, like I have experienced that time and again, that giving back to people and really putting that helping hand forward has a lot more happiness involved than just being able to um, collect as much money as possible. And I think 2 days ago, I was also reading one of the tweets that Elon Musk made, which was about,
Mhm.
okay, if you have billions of dollars and if you're stranded in an island where you can't really use that, what is the value of that billions of dollars? There is no, literally there is no value. The value
Yeah,
lies in commodities, the value lies in relationships, the value lies in love. And essentially when you give back in all of these three categories, that's where you find happiness essentially. And of course, as you said, money is important, we have to value it, we have to
yeah,
understand the value
yeah,
of it, and of course use it in a way that it can actually help and sustain whatever is around you. Thank you for sharing that, Swelin. Of course, like I really appreciate you sharing with honesty and with transparency, because a lot of the people, especially entrepreneurs, don't really want to share their aspirations about money, and I'm happy that you are open about that. Okay, so you left your job in 2016, and then you guys founded PichaEats, and the main reason behind founding that is, of course, helping refugees in Malaysia,
yeah,
refugees from Palestine, Syria, Pakistan,
yeah,
Afghanistan, Iraq. And you guys train them, design the menu, market
yeah.
test, photo shoot, and then sell it. As you shared, that this idea came about when you guys were in university doing a project. How did you think about growing it? When was that point where you were like, okay, this is getting traction, we need to go full time on this?
Yeah. So what's so interestingly, the transition is that because our first chef is actually our sort of student that we actually volunteer in the university, and then the kids started to drop out of school. Hence, we wanted to help them to we want to put back the kids into school. So we engage with the mom, and because in every household usually the mom can cook, right? And usually in the community they don't the women in the community they don't work. So then we thought, okay, since the women can cook, why not we try to sell their food? Hence, this is where the idea was born. So of course, when we first started, we know that okay, we need sales, right? So we started, of course, our closest that we can think of would be our friends in the university. So that hence we started. I would say that in the beginning, the mindset has always been like, okay, we want to do this, but then let's see how it goes. We have always think that I feel like in the beginning we always think that okay, this is not a part-time, it's a full-time thing, right? It's just that each of us we are doing different things, and I think my two other partners, I think they are probably still studying in their last year. So it's just that I graduated earlier than them. So it's more of, I think the mindset has always been okay, let's do this full time. It's just that we are also just testing out the market. So we have always been, I think since the beginning, we tried to approach like companies, things like that, but because we were so young, and like I think the perception of like refugee food is not very appealing as well, because there are many questions that comes out and things like that. I guess like the
Yeah.
turning point would be like magic itself. Like I feel like it came at the right time, where because we were there for 4 to 5 months, we stayed together, we went for like we studied, right? We studied about the business, and at the same time running the business for 4 to 5 months like full time. Hence I think for us it's really like since the beginning it has always been like a full-time mindset. So our goal has always been like, okay, let's grow this, let's go into this. It's just that I think when we join magic is really the boost, like the boost of confidence. The trainer asks us a lot of questions, our mentor asks us about a lot of questions. Then I guess when you join programs like this, you always have to put numbers to something, like, right? Like how much you want to
Absolutely.
earn this, yeah, how much you want to earn this month, how much you want to earn 2016, how many chefs do you want to have, how do you control this, how do you do that, and things like that. So I think through that, then we of course we learn a lot, and we started to like incorporate that advice into the business as well. I would say that in the beginning, I think like that is probably one of the turning points, because it questions all of us, right? Like, do you actually want to do this? Because we are already in this together for 4 months. So after that, what? Right? Are we going to look for another job? Are we going to do this? Or what are we going to do? Yeah. So I think that questions us a lot in the beginning. Yeah.
That's amazing. And when I was looking at the timeline of Picha, I was extremely impressed because you guys started in 2016 with
Mhm.
11 chefs, and you could give back almost 130 grand back to the chef. And in 2022, you have almost 17 active kitchens with
Mhm.
22 chefs, and you could give back 1 million ringgits to those chefs. That is incredible. Like,
Yeah.
how do you
Yeah.
about that, and what do you think is going to be the next step for you guys?
Yeah, I feel like it's about perspective, right? Like, some people, I mean, if I guess a normal, but I not normal, but like let's I think it's perspective, like who looks at it. And for example, like if a VC look at it, then they might think, oh, it's not such a big number and things like that. So I think it's perspective. But I think looking back, yeah, I mean, I honestly feel that it's not an easy business to run, because it's a business of not just selling food, but then at the same time we are very involved with the community. Like we in like down to like the medical issues, checkups, whether their kids are in school. Like we're very very involved. So I think in terms of the community wise, like I guess it's a balance between like we have to, I would say that there's no balance. I feel like sometimes when we focus too much on the community and then we don't run the business, if we run the business, then we have to, when then the community is being like sort of neglected. So I think over the years we also come up with certain structure and things like that. But I would say that it's okay. I wouldn't say it's like perfect, but I think it's not bad. But I feel like even for myself, like, I'm also being very critical about it lah. Like there's always, something can be better. There's always something better out there. We can always do something better. We always can hit the next million and things like that. But I think not. I feel like if I were to look back, it's a good journey, mix of both growth. I think for all of us, including the earlier on team that joins us, I think it's a very massive growth, like a very huge growth that we have to take on. Like even for us being like 20-year-old plus, we have to deal with like, I guess, a male chef. Sometimes we have to deal with a mom that is twice our age. So I think it comes with a different challenges as well. But I
Yeah.
feel like, yeah, I think it makes me question like, oh yeah, like what you said, right? Like what's next and how big is the growth? And because of my last 10 years, it has been, this big. So, what about the next 10 years? Is it still going to be that big? Or do I just want to, take a break, chill, sort of like enjoy life a little bit and things like that? Yeah, but I would say you cannot have everything in the world.
Absolutely. And the thing
Yeah.
is, like, you are not only doing this, you also have your own side venture, which is Sui and Co, where you're consulting people on their business and also social entrepreneurship. And beside that, you have a new company that you guys started with your sister, which is
Yeah.
called ManekNya,
Yeah.
which is also a social entrepreneurship organization
Yeah.
uplifting underrepresented communities. Talk to me about that. Like, why did you start that, and what is the story behind it?
Yeah, so for money, when I run PichaEats, I think there's a certain period of time that I actually took a break in the company to, to explore myself, other things, because I feel like, since the beginning, we have always been, just go, 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 right? Like just like literally go. Any problems, we are just firefighting, like since 2015, 2016. Then recently I took sort of a break, short break, and I think then I went back home, which is in Malacca and things like that. So I started to explore more about, where I came from, like my culture and things like that. So I came from a town in Malacca, and both of my grandparents are Peranakan, or we call it Baba Nyonya in Malacca. So growing up, I think our culture is a little bit different, like in terms of the food that we eat, the language that we speak, the certain things in the house and things like that. So growing up, I think funnily I've always thought that, oh, okay, this is normal, right? This culture is normal, until I think when I come to KL for to study and things like that, then I found that, oh, okay, actually it's different. Actually everybody eat different things. I actually had my first mama in KL as well.
Wow.
Things like that, right? Yeah, yeah, yeah. So things like that. So yeah, so I think the break really helped me to sort of like ground myself, to see, myself and the culture that I'm in, and just to explore, right? So we have this association, we call it the Peranakan Association in Malacca, where, like sort of similar culture people come together. And I realized that actually when I talk to people about like culture and things like that, not many people would want to embrace their own culture, right? I think most people are very modernized by the Western culture.
Yeah.
So we love to watch American movies, British and things like that. But then we don't think that our own culture is like sexy, modern, contemporary and things like that. Hence, I think this is where the idea was born. Because I think growing up also, I was quite close to my grandparents. I think we grew up, both me, my sister and I, we grew up in our grandparents' house. So we are very close to them. We are very like we are exposed to the culture, and we actually don't find that we don't I think when we talk to, let's say, someone that is younger than us, like our niece and things like that, they will always give this vibe or expression that says that, oh, I don't want to wear that shirt because it looks old, right? Only old people wear that. So I feel like, oh,
Mm.
okay, like why is that, right? The case. So starting ManekNya, we wanted to sort of contemporize the whole Peranakan brand. If you go to Malacca, we are very known for like the food, right? The
Yeah.
cendol, the laksa, and things like that, and also maybe a bit about kebaya, but not many people know about the beaded shoes. So
Mm.
hence that is why we wanted to start with the beaded shoes first. And then now we are also exploring not only the shoes, but what other lifestyle items that we can put beads on, and we can also make it modern and contemporary, so that it's not just for like special occasion, or it's not just for old people, but what can we offer to the younger generation, to someone who wants to embrace their culture as well, but at the same time wants to look contemporary, modern. Yeah, that's why we started up the brand ManekNya.
Amazing. So, if I condense whatever you have shared with me, so when it comes to PichaEats, you guys are trying to solve a problem where, of course, you help the refugees and make sure that they have a livelihood. Simultaneously, the food is unique to Malaysian culture, so of course, providing that food and of course, filling that void, right? That is one of the problems that you guys are solving. And by the way, I love your branding. I love how it's beautifully done. It's extremely gorgeous. And on the side of ManekNya, it's basically bringing cultural heritage
Yes.
back to the modern society and showing them what this culture stands for and how can we make it contemporary and how can we use that in the contemporary design and fashion.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. But at the same time, I think because I came from a background of social entrepreneurship, right? So I think like I know that okay, if I start another brand, like it has to be sustainable somewhat. So I've always like quite into like climate change, like I read a lot about fast fashion and things like that. So I think the next thing, like even for ManekNya, we try to see how we can make certain things like more eco-friendly or more sustainable. For example, like the cloth
Mm.
that we use, the training material that we use, hence why we try to incorporate a few things. But then in the branding wise, we don't really showcase that part because I feel like it's too much, right? Too much of information on what people can digest. So but then internally this is what we think about, where it has to be somewhat, because we don't want to be contributing negatively to the earth or to the world. So we still want to contribute positively, whether is it on the cloth part, whether is it on the people that we hire or the people that we work with and things like that. Yeah.
That's super cool. Like, it's amazing on how outstanding things you're doing at this age, and yeah, giving that inspiration to the society. And of course, I'm sure there are a lot of people who are looking up to you and thinking about building the next social entrepreneurship platform or a company. So, yeah, of course, extremely grateful for you to be sharing it here and, of course, to the world. The next question is, of course, a bit technical and would love to, pick your brains on it because pricing is one of the most
Yeah.
sensational topics. People talk, oh man, how do you price your product? How do you
Yeah.
price this? Why is this price so expensive when
Yeah.
the same quality of the same product is so cheap? So when it comes to, and I'm grateful that you run two companies and you can give answers of with two perspective.
Yeah.
So if we talk about Picha, how do you price the meals? And when it
Yeah.
comes to the shoes, because right now ManekNya only has shoes, right?
Yeah.
How do
Yeah.
you price that shoe as well? Because I know that the shoe can range in between 200 to 2000 ringgits.
Mm.
So how do you find that deviation?
Yeah. So I think first thing is that I think for pricing wise, like I mean, if you look at the market now, like there's always something that is very cheap, right? Something from you go online, you can find something that's very cheap, but you also can find something that is very expensive, like the luxury
Yeah.
brands and things like that. So I would say that there's always something for everyone. And I think first thing is that of course you need to know your customers, like who are your customers, who's buying it and things like that. I think the third thing is that I think to look at your business model or your pricing model itself. Of course, your model has to be, I think for both Picha and Money, it has to be like fair wage to the chef or to our artisans, right? Because like
Yeah.
we don't want to be running like another sweat factory around and pay people $1 a day and things like that. So we want to be able to pay people fair wage, living wage and things like that. So I think in terms of pricing wise, we have always looked at that. That is one component. And I think the other component is to look at the business itself. Can the business sustain? Like how much would it require for the business to sustain? And of course, then you look at like efficiency, like is it efficient? Is this part efficient? Is that part efficient? Because I think if you look at Picha itself, like there's a lot of cost into it, like not only the chef, but our delivery riders, the team that is running it. Let's say if it's a catering, there's a catering crew, there's the marketing team behind it, there's like the chef that are working behind it. So there's a lot of, and of course nowadays like ingredients are very like more and more expensive. So I think there's a lot of components that we have to look at and take into consideration. But at the end of the day, I think I would honestly say that PichaEats or even ManekNya stuff is not cheap. It doesn't belong. I mean, I wouldn't say it's not that we don't want to sell something that is cheap. It's just that the business model doesn't allow it to be cheap. If we want it to be cheap, then we have to hire someone that, and we pay them $1 a day. And but we don't want that, right? So hence why, hence why the pricing it is what it is today. For ManekNya, I think things are a little bit different because the time that you require, because it's like an artisanal product where the beads that we have, like a shoes has maybe about 10,000 beads, right? So that's a lot of beads, and you sew the beads one by one. You don't put like 10 beads and then you sew it at one time. You sew every bead one step at a time, right? So the time that the artisan take and things like that, everything we have to put into consideration because time is money, right? We don't want to pay them hourly. We want to pay them based on skill, based on the amount of work that they can do. So an average a good artisan can finish a pair of shoes in let's say 3 days, and in 3 days maybe they can earn about $600. I think that's not bad, but I think it really so I think the pricing is a bit different for both PichaEats and money, but I think both have to look at different aspect where is it I think you have to look at your whole um like value chain or your supply chain, whether is it fair for everyone. I think that's a key. I think that's why we started both businesses, right? Because we want to make sure that it is um it is contributing positively, right, back into the world, and everybody get their fair share of the work that they do. Yeah.
Absolutely, because it's not just a business, right? It's a business with a cause.
Yeah.
You have a cause that you're supporting with both the enterprises that you have. Of course, what you're saying is that you look at the operational expenses that you have, and then on top of that, you of course have a bit of a premium on
Yeah.
sustaining the company, and of
Yeah.
course, salaries and the staff, etc., etc. So looking at that OPEX and having that premium and looking at the affordability of the people, that's how you price your product.
Yeah.
Having said that, like, how do you identify a way to sell it?
Yeah, so I think for PichaEats, yeah, so I think in the beginning we explore a lot of companies. So I think once we have, I think a lot of word of mouth that goes on. So when we cater to one company, that one company will tell the other company, okay, you guys should order from them and things like that. So I
Mm,
think that's how we identify, and that's how we, because we are also quite on ground. Even until today, we are quite on ground. We talk to our customers and things like that. So I think that's one of the key thing that we have to do, which is actually to talk to your customer to find their pain points. Because most of the time, if if you go into a restaurant, if someone don't ask you, how's the food, you actually don't say anything about it, right? Until someone actually comes to you and say, how's the food, and then maybe you share a little bit about how's the food and
mm.
things like that. So I think it's the same as us, and I think through that, I would say that yeah, we constantly find places to go. Same with money. Yeah, I think now we are also finding different places that we can be in. I would say for money it's a bit different because we are currently still sort of identifying like where do we want to be. So we have a different range of products, not just we have the shoe side, but then we also trying to come up with different lifestyle items. So we try
Yeah.
to place our products with different price range at different places, whether is it in a retail store, whether is it in a high-end retail store. So just to see where it is. Currently we also work with different like local designers, like local designer that has already established the brand to incorporate certain things. So I think then it gives a certain perception towards the brand as well. So I feel like if you ask me 10 years ago, do I know where to put, I feel like it's more of like the journey of just doing one thing, and then the next thing will come, and just keep on finding opportunities, talk to people, talk to different people, talk to your friends, and talk to whoever that can actually connect you to the right person. Yeah, so I think that's how it has always been. Yeah, that's how we have always been running things lah.
I know, man. Like, I have tried Picha's food because we have ordered multiple times from Mine Valley.
Okay.
You are a fan of Arabic food, Pakistani food, Iraqi food. Man, try it out once, and then
Yeah.
you'll always be talking about it. That's my guarantee. And at the moment, Picha is, I think, a lot more word of mouth and also online. When it comes to Manek, you are doing it mostly physical, or is it also,
Yes.
oh, mostly
Yeah.
physical, really?
Yes, yes. Because I think at this point, I feel like online is very saturated with like a lot of
Mm,
everybody is trying to get attention online. So I think the thing about beaded shoes is that all this beaded item in general, I feel like not many people actually know what is it. Like it's not like diamond, right? Oh, when people talk about diamond, okay, I know what's a diamond. But then even like for diamond, people don't really sell it online, like there's pictures and stuff, but you still want to see it in real life. You still want to touch it, you still want to feel it. So I think for us it's more of we want to be offline on ground to actually explain to, or to have that genuine interaction to actually tell the story about the beads. Why is it so important? What is it made of? What's a sewing line? That's why we also run workshops to actually get people to understand, like, it's not that easy as you thought. It's not like,
Mhm.
I mean, people ask us, oh, why is it so expensive? But I think once you go through like the workshop, or you see the item in real life, then you would know that, okay, actually it's not that cheap. It requires a lot of time, patience, and even for artisan that became our artisan today, we actually spend together with them about 8 weeks of training, and they spend roughly
Wow,
about 240 hours. It's like yoga, right? So they
that's
spend,
great.
it's crazy. So the amount of time that they put in to actually master it is a long time, is to perfect that art pieces that we want is really long. And yeah, it's very intricate, it's very it's a art pieces lah, basically, right? Yeah.
Right. So besides just the product, which is the shoes, and now you're also going to lifestyle products, a lot more other things like bags, etc., etc. You also do workshops, right?
Yeah.
And that is also kind of like a upsell, or a simultaneous sell
Yeah.
that you do to your audience. So if they really want to understand about ManekNya and how this craft is done, they can actually attend these workshops in a group of
Mm-hmm.
4 to 6 to 5 people, and then you teach them on how these things are done, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That's amazing. And does that actually help in creating that awareness? Did you see any correlation in between people understanding, oh shit, this product takes so much effort, I'm going to buy XYZ? Does that happen?
Yeah, so I think interestingly, a lot of our workshops participants or students, when they come, they actually love the whole culture behind it, the whole embroidery behind it, the whole the art behind it. So usually when they come, they started they because they want to create their own pair of shoes, they want to create their own pair of clutches, bags, and things like that, right? Hence why they come for the workshop. But I think it's more and more when we do more of like commercial sort of workshop. So like those workshops earlier that I mentioned, when our students come to do their first pair of shoes. And I think one lady, she wants to do for her daughter-in-law upcoming wedding, right? So I think
Mm,
yeah, so I think that's quite interesting that a mom wants to do for their daughter or daughter-in-law. Yeah, but I would say that, like, when we do more commercial sort of workshop where we do things that are more simpler, then we do see that, okay, people actually appreciate it a bit more, and actually understand, oh, why is this so hard? In 2 hours I only can complete this much, this, like, 10 bits. Then they will understand that, okay, these are something that is not that easy to do. But I would say that all of yeah, so I would say that although it's not easy, but it's manageable. You can actually learn that arts or the craft. Because even for me, I learned this from my mom maybe about a year ago. Yeah, so it's not that long time ago that I've learned this. So I would say that it is a possible, you can actually learn it. I think the key thing in this, like in life, is that patience. I think you need to have a lot of
yeah.
patience to be able to do this. Yeah.
Amazing. And for Picha, at the moment, when it comes to building an audience, because essentially every brand, every company requires an audience, right?
Yeah.
Who you can speak with. And when you're speaking with them, essentially you're not really selling to them, you're just getting them
Mm,
aware about your brand. How do you build that audience for either of the brands, for Picha or for Manek? Because Manek is,
yeah.
is fairly
Mm,
still new,
mm,
requires that audience to be built. So,
correct. Yeah.
how are you building that right now?
Yeah. So for Picha, I would say that I think we talk to our customer a lot, and also I think in the beginning we do a lot of events. Like, for example, like International Women's Day, we do events. People can come, because the thing about our meal boxes, or even catering, right? Usually we don't do one-to-one meals. We do minimum, I think, 5 to 10 meals for so which means that you can't actually order it through Grab and things like that. So I think when we do events, people actually because it's a you can, even if you there's one person, you can actually come for the event and try all the food. We do a lot of, like, even until today we do where we do like a sort of open house where we sort of host our current or previous client, or so we rotate them, and then we invite them to our office or a place. Then we just share about where are we now, because I think when we first started in 2016 and now things have changed, so we can share with them also, like, what's our next goal, so I think for them it's more of like, they are, because these are not the things that you see on social media, because we don't announce that, oh, okay, next year this our plan, right? So it's more of like when we are on ground, when we share this, so that actually our customer, they also are quite invested in
Yeah,
us. So they also want to know, right, like, okay, next year how can I help you to reach your goal, what can I do more? They always ask us this question, like, so when we share things, then they, oh, I know this person somewhere, I can connect you with this person. So I think it's more of like really building that like genuine connection. At one point also, I think this is pre-pandemic, where we open up the refugee homes, so that we can actually get whoever that are interested to, if to dine in with the family, right? Because generally our families are all quite, our chefs are quite open. They usually, they love to host people anyway, they love
that's
to cook for
amazing.
people, they want to host them. So I think so it's a win-win, right, for both sides, for us, for the chefs, and for our customers as well, because they want to dine, they want to see who's a cook behind it. And I feel like I wanted to share this amazing story where in, I think, 2016 or 2017, we opened up our, I think, our third chef. His name is Zaza, at Zaza. So Zaza actually, so we opened up the house of Zaza, and Zaza, I mean, he is very hospitable, very welcoming, very, just very, very nice and very lovable in general. So I think after that, because we opened up his home, then I think at one point he actually fell sick. So I think then we started to close his kitchen. So people started to ask, like, what happened to his kitchen, where can I buy his food and things like that. So then we started to tell people that, he actually not feeling well, he's in the hospital right now and things like that.
Yeah,
And our customers actually say, how can I help? Do we want to raise fund? Should I raise fund for you? So I think, really building this like connection, and our customers are very invested in like, our growth and our chefs, our, yeah. So just this Picha in general, because of this, I think, love that we share within the company, and we share it with our customers as well. So I think that's how we do it, because I think we do it both online and offline as well, like a lot of events, a lot of things that we do internally as well. Yeah.
that's beautiful. And so, for Picha, you're actually not building an audience, you're building a community,
Yeah.
essentially. Building a community where there is love, you share the journey of the chefs, you share the journey of the company, and customers are invested, and the people are invested because they feel a
Mm,
part of that family, they feel a part of that
mm,
community. And I think
yeah.
not everybody can accomplish that, and that's the beautiful thing about Picha, where you're
Mm,
talking about food, but you're just building community around that food and around the people who
mm.
are making that food. That's beautiful.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So I think similarly, I think for ManekNya, I think we are still finding out like who is the audience and things like that. Of course, there are very small community that we have, but I mean, comparing to Picha, it's not as big. But then we are still, building our audience. We are still finding like who, like the crowd, our customers and things like that. Yeah.
Got it. And what are the main business metrics are you using for Manik and Picha for measuring its growth? Because all of the companies, essentially, if you're a corporate, you look at, okay, revenue. We want revenue year on year, quarter on quarter, this much growth, etc., etc., this much headcount. But for a company which is based on social entrepreneurship, what is that metric?
Yeah, I would say that actually it's still similar, because I think essentially if we want to grow the business, we have to look at business metrics, right? So I think for both Picha and Money, we look a lot at, of course, revenue, sales, right? Because I think realistically, more sales that comes in, the more chefs that we can onboard. So I think that's a very clear, like clear line lah that we have. So we look at sales, we look at I think that is a main thing, but then we also look at small key items, like for example, let's say were to work on, let's say, sales call, right? Like just how do we do sales in general, let's say sales call, let's say sales on ground, things like that. So we have like a certain numbers that we put, how many calls do we need to do, how many on ground things that we need to talk to, how many emails that we need to get. So everything is quite measurable as well. Same goes with like the marketing side, how well did we do on social media, whether it's on Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, and things like that. So I think we still look at very much quite department kind of metrics, whether it's sales, marketing, operation, and we also now we have the food, right? So even on the food side, we have like an NPS score that we look at, whether it's,
Mm,
yeah, to make sure that it's not bad. We need to, so we also constantly ask our customer feedbacks as well, to know that, okay, is it good or is it bad, how well, even to the point of looking at individual kitchen. We have 20 kitchen, let's say, and we look at every kitchen, what's their score, how well did they do, how many meals that they serve, how many meals that they get complained, what meals is the worst meal of the month, things like that, right? So because we want to be able to improve, we don't want to just be shouting about impact and our food is bad, right? But of course,
okay.
there are bad days, good days, but overall, we look at things like how, I guess, corporate looks at, but we look at, I guess what makes us a bit different is that we look also at impact, in terms of like, okay, this month, can the chef, how much this chef earn, can this chef pay their rental, can this chef have a bit of savings, can this chef able to send money back to their home country and things like that. So we look
Exactly.
at things a bit different. Business side, yes, it's quite businessy, it's quite numbers driven, but then in the chef side, in the impact side, we look at things like that, whether they are able to earn, pay rental this month, did they pay rental on time, did their kids, and then so we measure a bit about how well did they do, pre joining us and after. All this small impact that people actually don't see, like sometimes, like even to be able to send, for example, 200 USD back to their home country, I think that's a big milestone, because before aren't able to send money back, for example. So I think we look
Absolutely.
at small things like that. I mean, things like that we don't really announce it, because it's like, it got nothing to do with our customers, I guess. But then we do keep record, and when we put an impact report and things like that. Yeah.
Yes, I read your impact report and I was really impressed. It was really
Yeah.
well put together because you humanize the business. You
Yeah.
talk about,
Yeah.
how many people could afford their rentals, what was
Mm,
the average earning they used to have before joining Picha and after. Like it's so beautiful to see, and it's great that you guys are collecting that data because those are the things which actually, look at the health of the business, health
yeah.
of what you guys are doing. And of course, the reason why I say health, because essentially your providers are your chefs, right? If
Yeah.
they're happy,
Yeah.
their outcome is going to be brilliant, and if their outcome is brilliant, your
Yes.
customers are going to be happy.
Yes.
So
Yes.
so this is a bit of a technical question, and I would love to understand from your side, what is that best lever for constant growth in Picha? Because I saw that from 2016 to 2022, even in pandemic, you guys were growing, with
Mm.
a slight percentage. There was that growth. So what is that best lever for you guys for that constant growth?
Yeah, I think for us is that, I think me and my partners, we have always been looking at things like just, what's the next thing, how can we grow this. We are constantly thinking about, like you mentioned earlier, right, the business metric, how can we grow from 1 million to 2 million, 2 million to 3 million, how can we make sure that our food has 5-star rating all the time and things like that.
Yeah.
So we've always been thinking about that. But I think for the pandemic, I think of course it scares us a little bit, because I think 60 or 70% of our sales comes from catering. And when I think during the pandemic is where corporates are not in corporate, like there's no events, there's no weddings and things like that. So I think for us is that we look at other alternative, what can we do with food that we can also sell to people. And we started to do, we I think we test it out first. We test with our closest client, we ask them for feedbacks and things like that. So we started our ready to heat meal or frozen journey. We call it Ding now by PichaEats. We started that. We started a few things like corporate gifts. We, because corporates, they want to take care of their employee back home and things like that. So we started to explore like different things. I think we explore so many things. Some things fail, some things are doing okay until today. Yeah, we I think for us it's more of like we are not afraid of failing, so we just try. Everything is like we can always just like, because we, I think there's also expectation that we tell our customers, especially the when we run our beta test, where we say, okay, this is a beta test. We are testing this out. We really need your honest review opinion about this. Please tell us. So I think a lot of customers, because they have journeyed with us over the years, so they also understand it and they also want to help, because everybody in pandemic, we are struggling, right? So at home they just do whatever that they can to help us out, whether is it on food tasting, food to review it, whether to do word of mouth, just small things like that. So I think for us, I think to answer the question, it's really, I think the persistency in wanting to grow something or to wanting to make something work. I mean, I feel like it's not like magic or anything. It's more of like really that drive of
Got it.
wanting to make it
Work.
successful, I guess. Yeah. Work. Yeah.
Absolutely. I think that's a very human answer to this question, because a lot of the people would talk about, oh yeah, for me it's Facebook ads, for me is this and that, but for you is experimentation. For you it's
Yeah.
a constant need and want to find a solution to work for whatever problem that you're trying to solve. And I think that's what matters essentially, because like there is no one size fit all for everyone. There is no one magic pill for everyone. You always
Mhm.
have to find, especially as an entrepreneur, you have to find solutions to your problems, and you have to do, everything possible in this
Yeah.
world to try to solve it. And my next question was about retention. Like how do you retain your customers? What is it that you do that you make sure that they are coming back?
Yeah, I think first thing is that we really have to make sure that the food is good, like really, really good,
Yeah.
that they would actually come back. Because I
Yeah.
think we realized that even in the beginning, right, like we realized that no matter how good or how bad, I mean, no matter how bad the food is, like even if they want to help you, they won't come back, right, after that first
Mhm.
time. So we know that if our customers never come back, means the food is not good. So I
Yeah.
think for us is that really the key thing is really the food. I think other than that is really the side job, where whether is it the job of the marketing team or the sales team to be able to follow up the customers and things like that. I think that's a different thing. But essentially I would say it's a food. But other than that, yeah, it's really the sort of, I would say like it's really the job of the salesperson, whether we do a follow-up call, whether we drop them a newsletter every week, every month, we talk to them,
Mhm.
do we invite them for events, yeah, things like what most people do, I think. But I think essentially it's really the food. Yeah. So
Yeah.
if, I think honestly, if the food is not good, like whether let's say that they somehow, the chef like didn't produce a good food, then we know that this customer is not going to come back. But I think what we do after that, maybe we compensate a better meal, maybe we give them, we write them apology note, things like that lah, nice gesture stuff, because we still want to retain them. Like, we're really sorry for the food that is really bad. It's, yeah, like it's not something that we mean to serve, but then if it's really something that accidentally happened, maybe there's something in the food or things like that, then, or the rice is not cooked properly, then we just have to apologize and send a better meal, send a code or things like that. But of course, over the years, we have customers who never apologize. I mean, sorry, we have customers who never forgive us for the things that we do, the mistakes that we do, especially in the beginning. So of course, things like that, we can't do anything, right? And I think until today we still have customers who still never come back to us because the experience was just so bad. But we really sorry. I mean, we felt bad about it, but then there's nothing that we can do because we already did our best in trying to
Absolutely.
mend a relationship and things like that.
Yeah, and the thing is, especially when you're starting something, there are fuck ups. You will have mess ups. You will produce a bad quality product, and that's just a part of the journey, right? Like, but essentially what you're saying is that product is what keeps the customers
Yeah.
retained. Product is
Mm-hmm.
what actually makes them come back. So if the
Yeah.
food is good, they will of course come back. And there is another element to that, right? What you mentioned is care, that you
Yeah.
make sure that you care about the customers. If they feel a certain way about the food, you make sure that you counter that with either an
Mm,
apology note, either
yeah.
giving them vouchers or sending them the food again. But
Yeah.
I think that is what matters. Like, if an entrepreneur really cares about their customers and they show that genuine care, and not really always worry about money, 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 and grabbing all the money that they have, but really making sure that they get the value out on what was promised. And if you're delivering that, essentially you are retaining the customers.
Yeah.
That's beautiful. How big is your team at Picha and also at Manek? I think Manek is just still pretty new, but
Yeah.
how big are your teams in either of the companies?
Yeah. So I think in Picha we have about, I think maybe about 15 to 20 full-time team. And then we have also about like 15 to 20 chefs. We also have like our delivery guys, maybe about
Mm,
20 to 30 of them. In
wow.
ManekNya it's still very small. I think core team is only my sister and I, but we have about 15 artisans that are with us.
Wow.
Yeah, but so far we have trained about more than, I think, 150 artists, embroiderers, who have gone to do many other things, whether is it to upskill themselves or to open up a new business, or whether to, as a new skill that they can, because some of them, I think in Manitnya, is that some of them, they are tailors themselves, so they want to
Mm,
incorporate like bits into their clothing, then they can. So yeah, I mean the team in Manitnya is relatively small,
yeah,
but yeah, I
yeah.
think we are doing okay.
The cause is so beautiful, right? Like, this cause will of course keep growing, and you're giving back to the society, you're giving back to the people. And I don't think that's a small feat at all. But of course, when it comes to hiring a team, what is that one quality that you see in somebody before hiring them? Of course, they should be knowing their job, they should have the skills that you need, but what is that one quality with which you're like,
Mm,
yes, I want this
yeah.
person in my team?
Yeah, I think the first, maybe one of the main qualities would be, maybe I would say, like the eagerness to learn and to grow, because I think over the years also, like we have, I think why is that important is because I think over the years we have go through like many challenges and experiences, like for example during the pandemic, nobody thought that we would actually go into lockdown, right? So I think then that really forces us to change, to grow, to learn. Like we don't know certain things, we have to learn, right? So I think to us, I think to me is, I think these are one of the most important. Like, we need someone who can actually learn, someone who can actually grow,
Yeah.
someone who is willing to grow themselves, because they say that if your cup is empty, you can't give, right, to others. So I think that is really, I think I starting to see that this is actually very important, because if you don't grow yourself or you don't learn, then you can't actually contribute to, whether is it the company or to the other things that you need to do and things like that. So I think the key here is like to be comfortable in the uncomfortableness of life, or in whatever situation that we are put in, and to be able to learn and grow from that as well, and to make through lah, to be able to go through that, like the, I think we call it the beginner's mindset. Recently I read
Mm.
about this as well. Like, if someone doesn't have that, then I feel like usually they will leave the company and just move on to something more comfortable and things like that. Yeah.
Absolutely. And since at the moment you have that bigger team in Picha, and of course, when it comes to Manik, at the moment it's just you and your sister with the artisans that you have. Do you leverage AI in any way or form in your businesses?
I think I use a lot of Canva. I think now Canva has a lot of features, whether is it to beautify your image and things like that. I think that's one. I think we use a lot of writing as well, because there's only two of us in the business, so we do a lot of writing in for social media especially. But we still try to humanize it a little bit, because I still find it, like, of course, we use like Chat GPT, which is the famous ones. But then we also try to use other graphics AI. But we doesn't seem to be able to find, because I think in Manitnya the things that we need is quite specific. So I think the
No,
AI haven't learned yet. But
not there yet.
Not there yet, yeah, not there yet. So I think maybe, yeah, maybe soon, we need to find some generative image and things like that. But yeah, but those tools are, yeah, I think it's really helpful, especially with team that is this small and we need to run other things as well. So I think it is helpful, lah, definitely.
Absolutely. I think AI is really transforming the way people work,
Yeah,
essentially with, like Midjourney, ChatGPT, DALI, and all
yeah,
of these
yeah.
platforms save a lot of time. And of course, as you said, you have to change it as per what you need. My last question about businesses and the companies that you have is, when do you start looking for investment, and when should you start looking for an investment?
Yeah, I think first thing is, I think we need to ask like what sort of investment that we want. So we talk about, let's say, the like VC, like we want to we want to talk to VC and things like that. I
Yeah.
think then we need to, I guess, ask ourselves, because I feel like it's like a marriage, whether you like it or not, right? Because you have to work together, you are receiving money, you are reporting certain things. I think the relationship has to be good as well. And I think to ask yourself whether you are ready, because it's not just about growing. I mean, it is about growing the business, but at the same time, like, are you willing to, work together with this person in this venture capitalist firm to actually make it work together, right? Whether is it on the number side, because I think previously, I think, let's say you run your own business, like nobody questions anything so much, right? Other than your partners, like nobody say, okay, we reach 1 million, but then the VC probably will ask you, no, let's reach to put another zero behind that 1 million, so make it 10 million, right? So can you do that? So I think to ask yourself, what do you want? I think, what do you want as a person, I mean, as an individual, and what do you want for your company as well, and whether you're willing to give up that certain percentage or certain control in the company. Realistically, I
Mm,
think that, yeah, if you want to grow your company to the next level, I think realistically, yes, you should look for investment. But I think nowadays there's a lot of different types of investment out there, and there's also different type of profile of investor out there as well. So I think is to be able to find that perfect match, sort of, to find that someone that you can work with, someone that you can, because you're going to work with this person for a long time, right? Maybe for the next 5 to 10 years. So I think to be able to find that and to see what sort of value that both of you can bring into the table as well. Like, it's not just about the money, right? It's about, like, the connections, the people in what, yeah. So basically the value that you are looking for in that person or that investor.
yeah. Have you guys taken any investments yet in either of the companies?
Not yet, but we are thinking of, yeah.
That's amazing. And what would be the vision of that investment? Like, if you won that, is it to grow the base of your chefs or the production of ManekNya? What is it going to be? So, let's say if you get the investment today, where will you utilize it?
Yeah, I would say that honestly, I feel like I can't really speak now, because like, I'm not like, in Picha, because I'm running two business, right? So in Picha, I'm not very involved in the day-to-day side. So I feel like I can't
Hmm.
really speak on that sense, in the sense like what my two other partners are thinking if we were to receive investment today. But if just like on top of my head now, if, yeah, I think it could be, production. I think production is a very heavy capex, yeah, like production of the meal. Maybe you want to explore on the frozen side, the ready to eat meal side, to go into like, grocery markets, supermarkets and things like that. Yeah, I think that is one big chunk that we need. Yeah.
That's amazing. Okay, so we are getting to the end of this interview. And of course, I would like to appreciate you for taking out this time and investing this hour plus, for giving this value out to the audiences and, of course, for people who want to learn. But before we end this, would love to know, let's say if there are people who are 10 years behind you and they want to take an action today to start their entrepreneurial journey, what would you advise them to do?
I would say that, first, I think figure out like what is the problem that you want to solve. Yeah, because I feel like most entrepreneur, like they just want to do business, but then you're not really actually solving like the real problem. Or, yeah, so I think it's really to find that the real problem that you want to solve, whether is it on impact side or whether is it like just pure business, right? It's the same, I feel. I think second is to, yeah, I think find people that can have the same vision as you, and to do it together. Because I find that I think what I appreciate most about my journey in both and both business is that I think I have partners. So I think that is something that I really appreciate the most, actually, to have both to have partners and to be able to be, you know, in that same boat throughout the journey. Yeah, but of course I understand that it's not easy to find because I've people that come to me and say, you know, I can't find and like similar people mindset and things like that. I think it's difficult, but I think it's that it's like finding the right partner, right? It's not that easy. So you just have to keep on looking, talk to people. Yeah. So these are the two
Absolutely.
things.
Yeah. That's a brilliant advice because, man, I have been looking to hire people for this podcast, and it has been
Mm.
such a journey for me. And like I have finally I found one. But the thing is, it was such a big journey for me realizing, if you want to hire for your own business or a side hustle or a startup, and then finding a co-founder or it's I'm sure it's a lot more hard. But of course, for Picha, you had those people around you, and for Manek you have your sister who have the same vision, who actually got it from your father. So I think it's very beautiful on how it turned up to be. But of course, since it's the end of the podcast, people who are listening or watching, how should they reach out to you, Sweelin?
Yeah, I think I'm quite active on LinkedIn, so you can just look me up on LinkedIn. Also like my own consulting site that I do. So it's the website is called thesui.co. Yeah, so you can also reach out to me there as well.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Willin, for being here. And of course, I'll make sure that I add your links in the description below so that people can reach out to you